Let me make it clear in the beginning, all of these lectures on linguistics will be delivered in English as well as in Urdu. At the end of this lecture, all of these points will be clarified in Urdu and Hindi for the people living in India and Pakistan. In the field of linguistics, we have two very important topics. One is synchrony and diachrony. These are two concepts. First of all, in linguistics, Ferdinand de Saussure, he coined these terms. He basically differentiated between these terms. So synchrony versus diachrony, or you can say synchronic linguistics or diachronic linguistics. These branches are distinctions based on time. Synchrony is also study of language. Diachrony is also study of language. Synchrony is study of language at a particular time. For example, in this modern age, how language is used, how sounds are joined, how new words are formed, how meanings are conveyed, all of these things are studied when at a particular time, language is studied of a particular time, we call it synchrony. What is diachrony? Diachrony is also comparative linguistics, historical linguistics. Diachrony is the study of language with the passage of time. How language evolved with the passage of time. How language keeps changing. How language keeps evolving. What were the differences in meaning? How semantics evolved. How phonological changes occurred. How phonetics evolved. How meanings changed with the passage of time. How words changed. How their spelling changed. How their pronunciation changed. This change of language with the passage of time is diachronic study of language. These refer to the time-based distinction in linguistic studies. So in a study of linguistics, this distinction is based on a time. One is at a one particular given time, and the other is the study of language with the passage of time, during the course of time. Synchrony was proposed firstly by Ferdinand de Saussure. We also call it Saussure. Synchrony is also called synchronic linguistics or descriptive linguistics because it describes the use of language, the way it is being used. It can also be defined as the study of language at a particular time. Synchronic relationship is the one where two similar things exist at the same time. So it is a study of language at the same time. Chronos mean time and syn means things happen at the same time. So at the same time, study of sound, formation of words, meaning and all of these things, this study will be synchronic. And if we study how language changed with the passage of time, it will be diachronic. Again, chronos mean time and dia mean course of time, passage of time. So with the passage of time, the kind of study we conduct is diachronic study of linguistics, is diachronic study of language. Synchronic linguistics tries to understand the functioning of language, the use of language at a single point of time, at a particular period of time, at the specific time, without reference to its earlier stages or later stages, without drawing a comparison between its earlier stages or later stages. It focuses on a single time of language when it was being used or practiced or etc. So synchrony is fundamental to language because first of all we must know at a particular time how language is being used, how this system works collectively, how all of these parts coordinate to function as a language at a particular time. After that we can compare it with other periods of time. For example, we compare the modern English with Middle Ages, we compare modern English with classical times. So this comparison can later be drawn to get further insight into the language. Diachrony is also called diachronic linguistics. It is also called historical linguistics because it studies evolution of language, a history of language, how language changed with the passage of time. So it can be defined as study of language or languages. It can be defined as study of language change through time with the passage of time. So diachronic linguistics studies language in its development across the time. how it keeps developing, flourishing, nourishing, advancing and progressing or evolving or decaying with the passage of time. So language change and language development and language death and language, so all of these things can be studied with the approach of this diachronic linguistics. Diachronic approach means studying any aspect of language by comparing it between two periods of time. Between two periods of time, we study the change, the evolution, the kind of changes which took place during the two periods, and we look at it as an example, studying the usage patterns of double negatives in English in the 18th century and comparing it to the patterns in the 19th and 20th and 21st century to see how double negatives in English may or may not have changed. For example, I do not have no problem, I do not have any problem. So in the first sentence, they brought double negatives. We have said I do not, and again they said no, and I do not have any problem. Once we have mentioned not, we don't need to mention it again not. So in some parts of the world or in some periods of the history, they have been using double negatives, but now it is omitted. Draw a comparison. Synchrony is study of language in a given time, and diachrony is study of language through time, in the course of time, across time. Then synchrony is also called descriptive linguistics. It investigates the way people speak language, the way people use language, the way people pronounce the words. And diachronic or historical, it's also called temporal linguistics, studies the development of language through time. Then synchronic aspects make a temporary cut and determines what are the patterns that structures language at that moment. At that moment, how sounds were produced. At that moment, how words were formed. At that moment, what kind of spellings existed. At that moment, what kind of semantic range of the meaning was there. So all of these all of these aspects are taken into consideration at a particular time. This is synchrony. On the other hand, diachrony examines the evolution of language through history. It focuses how words and signs are modified, how their meanings change with the passage of time. Synchrony deals with system, how this system as a whole works. Diachrony deals with units, how they change with the passage of time. Synchronic study is fixed or static in a way that it focuses on a one time. Diachronic study is moving, it is dynamic, it studies changes in the language that exist. Then synchronic linguistics studies language states without their history, and descriptive linguistics or diachronic linguistics studies language change. Synchronic language states how language exists at that time without its changes. On the other hand, diachronic studies language change. So this was all about synchrony and diachrony. सिंक्रोनी को आप सिंपल लफ्ज़ों में समझ सकते हैं, लैंग्वेज की स्टडी है एट अ पर्टिकुलर टाइम, एक ख़ास वक़्त में लैंग्वेज कैसे काम करती थी, उसकी प्रोनाउंसिएशन क्या थी, साउंड क्या थे, स्पेलिंग क्या थे, लफ्ज़ क्या थे, सेंटेंस स्ट्रक्चरिंग क्या थी, लैंग्वेज का इस्तेमाल स्टडी किया जाता है एक ख़ास वक्त में। उसका कंपैरिजन नहीं करते जो पहले वक़्त के साथ या बाद वाले वक़्त के साथ। जबकि डायाक्रोनी क्या है कि एक लफ्ज़ वक़्त के साथ साथ कैसे चेंज हुआ, उसका मीनिंग कैसे चेंज हुआ, उसके अंदर स्ट्रक्चरिंग कैसे चेंज हुई, ये जो सारी चेंजेस की स्टडी है वक़्त के साथ साथ, ये डायाक्रोनिक लिंग्विस्टिक है। इसे हम हिस्टोरिकल लिंग्विस्टिक्स भी कहते हैं, इसे टेम्पोरल लिंग्विस्टिक्स भी कहते हैं, और सिंक्रोनी को डिस्क्रिप्टिव लिंग्विस्टिक्स भी कहते हैं। शुक्रिया। All of you are simply requested to share our channel, subscribe it, like it. Please leave your feedback in the comments and I will be highly thankful to you for your cooperation. Jazakallah.